school board universe, and wanted to start tonight off with an article that I saw, and I didn't write about it yet because it made my head hurt. But thought I'd run some of this by you guys and see the insanity that is our school situation, because I think it's really the crux of what we can at least try to control. And this is an article from the Washington Post that parents claim they have the right to shape their kids' school curriculum, and they don't. They don't. So, just in case you didn't know that, guys, they don't think you should even have a chance to even have input on school curriculum. So, this is article in Washington Post, and first thing I wanted to make sure you note is that they use a photo of people who are objecting to the vaccine mandates. It has nothing to do with school curriculum, by the way. It's not like they're trying to be objective or anything. So, in their search for issues that will deliver Congress in 2022. So again, it's as though we're gonna blame Republicans, right? So as conservatives have begun to circle around the cause of quote parents' rights. In Indiana, Republican Attorney General Todd Rokita recently introduced a Parents' Bill of Rights, which asserts education policy and curriculum should accurately reflect the values of Indiana families. I can't find anything wrong with that statement, but the author of this does. Florida, an even more comprehensive bill, assures that the state and its public schools cannot infringe on, quote, fundamental rights of parents. And then in Virginia, Republican Glenn Youngkin has made parents' rights a centerpiece of the campaign for governor, saying, quote, parents matter, and declaring, I believe parents should be in charge of their kids' education. So this is the big divide. Then it talks about a common law case. And then he has a quote from Jeff Schulman. Quote, this effort may divide child from parent, not because socialist educators want to indoctrinate children, but because learning to think for oneself is what children do. What do the interests of parents and when do interests of parents and children diverge? Generally, it occurs when a parent's desire to inculcate a particular worldview denies the child exposure to other ideas and values that an independent young person might wish to embrace or at least entertain. And then it goes on and says that this would risk inhibiting the ability of young people to think independently. Bob, I'm going to go to you first because I'm going to pause for a minute. Can you think of a topic that schools fight to make sure that we don't discuss at all and give a chance for children to remotely ever entertain?
In the public schools?
Yes. You think of
Sure.
any? Just Bob, can you name one?
You can't discuss the Bible.
Or anything that is in the Bible, basically? Like there's nothing, like you're not allowed to have any?
I mean, you can't even look at the Bible as history.
Correct.
Even if you don't want to do the Christianity portion, you can't even do it as history. So that's pretty messed up. And you got to remember though, that's the book that most of the founders read. They may not have been Christians. A lot of them were deists, but the Bible was a mainstay in their library. A lot of them learned how to reading the Bible. Right. So, yeah.
Alex, when you see an article and hear some of the words that I read there for you, what was your initial response? Or I don't know if you're familiar with the story yet or not, but what are your thoughts in response to that?
I loved it. I thought it was absolutely great. I was very happy that they put this out. And the reason why is simple. Until we completely demolish the public education system as we know it right now, this is always going to be a problem. They just said the quiet part out loud. And I'm happy that they did. So let's have a debate as to why you should pull your kid out of public school completely. In a weird way, I'm kind of against the going to the school board meetings and complaining. I would much rather people just say, screw it, take their kids out and move on. And just stay away from these government indoctrination centers. It's always going to be a fight. And eventually, like, the power of the state will mean that we're always going to be battling this until we realize that you have to eliminate it in order to win the battle overall. But also, look, if parents want their kids to be taught critical race theory, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. If you can choose to go to a school that does that, if that's your thing, you can teach them, lesbian dance theory. You name the subject, you can teach them whatever you want to teach them. Just you don't get to choose for everybody else how you want those kids to be educated. And I'm glad that they're doing this now. I used to be a person that wasn't really opposed to public schools, and now we need to get rid of them.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that the problem with the argument is that at the school board level, they're going to be controlling pretty much the schools in that district, right? They're going to cover. So if this were like the Hillsborough County School Board, it's not like I have options to say the inner city school wants to do this, but I'm in a more rural area at the edge of the county. So it becomes very difficult to try to come up with a curriculum other than homeschooling, which is something that sadly many parents can't or won't do. I want to go further into the story.
It's getting easier, though.
It is definitely getting easier. So let me tell you how the article progresses as they quote, and I wanted to see your guys' reaction, because they quote political scientist Rob Reich, and he argues the minimal autonomy requires, especially for the civic importance, that a child be able to examine his or her own political values and beliefs and those of others with a critical eye. And then he goes on, he says, if we value that end, the structure of schooling cannot simply replicate in every particularly the values and beliefs of a child's home. First off, you guys know who Robert Reich is, right? Robert Reich?
Yeah, the former labor secretary.
Yeah, he's a Clinton labor secretary. He was part of Obama's transition team. This is hardly a ambiguously described political scientist chiming in and being their reference in this article.
No, massive socialist leanings.
Yeah, and then it's like again, the child is going to be able to be given his or her own opportunities to explore political values and beliefs. When is the school system remotely presenting kids with anything other than the far left perspective on all of these? The entire premise that we're having outrage is that that is not the case. The article just keeps digging in. Talk about, Alex, you were saying there, the quiet part out loud. This is a few paragraphs down. Courts have found that parents have great authority when it comes to deciding how to raise and educate their children. This right, however, does not mean that public schools must cater to parents' individual ideas about education. Parents can opt out of public system if they wish and pay to send their children to religious schools, but their parental rights remain subject to the state regulation and override. And then it goes, it's like, in framing our public schools as extremist organizations. I don't know that anyone's saying it quite like that, but that's how this person is doing it. But he says, parents may end up with a new set of rights only to discover they've lost something even more fundamental in the process. Turned against their schools and their democracy, they may wake up from their conspiratorial fantasies to find a pile of rubble and heap of ashes. Wow, Washington Post. Alex called you out. You said the quiet part out loud for sure.
Let's just hope it turns into a heap of ashes. There's hoping for that.
It is so much of stuff that I kind of, I already had my kids out of the public school for different reasons, but I remember being I think we were even at a libertarian event where you were at one, Alex, and the person that was speaking referred to how when they're in the public school, they view them as their property. They usurp your ability as a parent to decide basically everything. Like you are not allowed to say, as far as they are concerned, oh, your teacher's not right about that. That's not actually what happened. This is what happened. And there was many, many, many cases when my children went through school where I was like, especially with things like history. History has definitely like completely been rewritten for these kids and what little history they get. So, oh yeah, that was how, that was an article, Washington Post. I'll have the links there. you do not have a right to shape your kid's curriculum. You don't get a vote. They don't want you to have a vote. That was the to me, Bob, it's the backbone of this culture war, is this battle over education. And I know I understand exactly what Alex is trying to say, and all I can do is hope and pray that we can get more people to just go, you know what, I'm out, or radically reshape the whole districts, with school choice options, money follows kids, something. There has to be better options.
Well, if you keep your eye on Virginia right now, this is the exact topic. Why Youngkin's even a name in this race coming up. His opponent is longtime politician / Democratic strategist Terry McAuliffe, and he said multiple times that parents don't have the right to, dictate what schools should be teaching and the like. So it's gotten so bad that I can't remember if it's Loudoun County or Fairfax County. One of those school districts have lost something like 10% of their students from, last year or 2 years ago, either to homeschooling, private school, or others just left the state looking for a place that's more accommodating for their children's education. So the people are speaking. Is it enough? I don't know.
Music to our ears.
Hey, we're News Talk with Brandon and Bob. We're here to tell you about some of the facts so you don't have to waste your time watching CNN.
We don't want you wasting any time with CNN.
Or Fox or MSNBC or some of these other guys that are making a whole lot of money.
Et cetera, et cetera.
It's not paying.